Described by its developer as a heartwarming horror game, Seven Nights Ghost is the no-budget debut of Tozoku Games, which dares to ask, what if you had a ghost for a roommate? You step into the role of an unnamed male protagonist who has to spend the next week in temporary accommodation for work purposes, which happen to be, you guessed it, haunted. In this case, our ghost happens to be an attractive lady, and the game's promotional materials has seen its Steam message board be filled with boorish gamers hollering about waifus and asking if there's a mod to let you bang the ghost. Buddy, they don't even let me bang the ghost. I didn't actually want to bang the ghost, okay. Ultimately, Seven Nights Ghost is one of Steam's many first-person horror games made with prefab Unity assets and with a pretty rough translation to boot. These experiences are a dime a dozen, but there was something about this blend of supernatural horror and slice of life that compelled me to check it out. Seeing as this is a very short game by a very small dev, I'm going to keep this one light on the spoilers in case you'd like to check it out for yourself. Each of the 7 nights is a discrete chapter that takes roughly 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and our first night introduces us to our temporary digs. We've just traveled up from Tokyo to an anonymous remote prefecture, and we make our slow trudge up to the front door, looking at a cute cat picture on our phone while sad music plays. If something happens to this sweet little cat, I am gonna... We enter a small, open-plan studio apartment with modern furnishings. A note's been left for us by the housing manager, who asks us to test the utilities to make sure everything's working. Shortly after, she sends us a text message reminding us that the apartment is being demolished in 7 days, so we'd better not leave anything behind, along with a little teasing note that the joint is haunted. So we have our first task ahead of us, an unpaid snagging visit just before bedtime. The first thing I noticed while exploring was this horrid filter over the screen. Ostensibly to add atmosphere, it really reminded me of when you've got a really nasty wet sneeze while you're wearing your glasses, and all the eye goo and phlegm dries on the lenses, and you need some spray cleaner or at least some water to get it off, but you're out on a walk, and if you just wipe it with a cloth or with your sweater, it'll just smear everywhere and you won't be able to see. Sorry, maybe that was a little bit too much. Anyway, the apartment itself is very cat-motifed, boasting cat statues, cat patterns on the textiles, and even one of those beloved cat clocks, not the type popularized by Spencer's Gifts. As we check out the facilities to make sure everything's working to our liking, we start to get our first signs of the rumored ghost. A figure appears and disappears as the bedside lamp is turned on and off. A glimpse of someone standing behind you in the bathroom mirror. Nobody's there when you turn around, but each time you face the mirror, they've gotten a little bit closer. The biggest paranormal activity tonight comes from the toilet, where we find ourselves paralyzed and facing the door as an archetypical Sadako-esque Yurei phases through the door, bowed head, long hair occluding her face. Once she makes herself known, she's gone as soon as she arrived. The encounter is not remarked upon, instead speaking for itself as the game simply flags to the player that they have successfully completed their task. Once all of these triggers are hit, the TV switches on by itself, broadcasting this very apartment, with the ghostly figure standing smack dab in the middle of it. As we approach to get a closer look, the image quickly changes to a test card. We can't go to bed with all this racket on, so our final task of the night is to find the remote and turn the dang thing off. We have a little poke around, catch glimpses of our ghost out of the corner of our eye, and eventually find the remote. As we attempt to turn it off, the spectral figure appears once more, grabs our hand roughly. We finally get a good look at her, a conventionally attractive woman with bruising to her face. One eye has burst capillaries as if she's been crying, and the other looks like she's been punched, which she hides beneath her hair. She slowly reaches a perfectly manicured hand towards us. And we offer her a donut. She pauses, seemingly taken aback by this unexpected act of generosity, but ultimately she grabs it and disappears. And then it's back to the title screen to load the next night manually. Nights 2 through 7 follow a similar formula. We come back from our shift at the factory, where our co-workers laughed at us because we had our donuts stolen by the infamous ghost. We're given a checklist of things to do around the apartment before bed, usually finding some items which have been misplaced by our new housemate. Band-aids, sellotape, laundry detergent, Tupperware, that kind of stuff. I kind of like this night where you need to find some chopsticks before your instant noodles go soggy. And it's here that we have some added gameplay elements. There's some light puzzles to solve here and there, but the main addition is that our ghost has become a threat. Every so often, we hear a faint tinnitus sound, steadily increasing in volume. Dynamic and directional, turning to face its direction grants us a look at our ghost, who then freezes in place and disappears. Although simple, it's a pretty effective simulation of that uncanny feeling one gets of being watched. Let her get too close while you're facing away from her, and you get a fairly gentle jump scare as her face fills the screen and we're returned to the title screen to restart the night. A little frustrating, but not particularly difficult, and each night is often so slight that the loss of progress isn't a major defeat. Needless to say, headphones are a must to win these phantasmal games of red light, green light. On one of these early nights, one of the items we find is this stag beetle toy. At the end of the night, the ghost ambushes us in the kitchen, knocking us on our tush and crawling towards us on all fours. However, when she spots the beetle toy, she jumps up and flips away, seemingly frightened. She peeks at it for a bit before gingerly raising a foot to kick at it. When she confirms it's just a toy, she disappears, leaving you to go to bed unhindered. It was at this time that I noticed our ghost has a distinctly cat-like demeanor. My boy Borscht, for example, really hates the vacuum cleaner, and as long as it's not on and whirring away, he'll sometimes sneak a peek at it to scare himself for fun. Sometimes he'll even punch it and then run away. This beetle encounter has a very similar energy, one of endearing frustration that's instantly recognizable to any cat lover. Night 3 I found particularly cute, as our protagonist comes home to the startling realization that the ghost ate our last pudding pot. We're holding a donut in our hand as an after-dinner treat, echoing the events of the first night. Wanting to protect it from the ghost, our task is to find an adequate hiding spot for us. This requires us to create a distraction using an alarm clock before rushing to hide the donut in the closet. Once we complete this task, our hero breathes a sigh of relief, only to turn around and spot the ghost sitting on the bed, chowing down on our dessert. The night ends with a declaration of despair, which genuinely made me laugh a little bit. The middle of the week is where things start to get a little bit more menacing. The lights stop working, and the darkness does add a bit more tension. Unfortunately, things also start to get a little bit more tedious, particularly on night 5, where we're tasked with repairing a cat statue that the ghost accidentally knocked over and broke. This amounts to holding the mouse button down to work away with some glue and a rasp, watching a meter slowly fill from 0 to 100%. Naturally, the ghost is still stalking us, requiring the player to quickly stop and face them before resuming the sluggish repairs. Later still, we find ourselves tasked with completing this B-Day puzzle, but the grody camera lens makes it difficult to see what I'm doing, and continuing to play red light, green light at the same time just made me feel kind of annoyed. That's not to say I wasn't charmed along the way. There's some sweet scenes of having tea with your spectral roommate, where she remarks that you're not really her type, but she appreciates your presence all the same. Now, this growing warmth between tenant and ghost makes it increasingly less clear what the wages of getting caught are. More mischievous than malicious, murder doesn't seem to be in keeping with the ghost's MO, but this further devolved into an annoying gameplay conceit as the story encouraged me to see our relationship warm with each passing night. Things come to a head on the final night. The ghost has become quite attached to us, and knowing that we're about to move out, becomes quite frustrated and starts up some poltergeist activity, tossing cushions all over the joint like a child having a temper tantrum. Our final task is not too dissimilar to the statue repair carried out a few nights prior. We avoid the ghost's aggressive appearances as we wait for our phone to finish charging. It's a highly active 5-minute sequence, and while not super difficult, does have the steepest penalty for failure. Once our phone charges, the game ends on one final heart-to-heart with the ghost. And honestly, I've found myself a little befuddled at how things wrap up. The ghost's behavior, coupled with your evolving friendship, strongly hints towards a certain outcome, which it ultimately doesn't deliver on. I wasn't expecting an intricately woven story, but it is a little baffling. I don't know. It may be down to a translation issue. There's actually 2 achievable endings. Each night has a hidden sutra for you to find and rip off the wall, unbinding the ghost from the apartment. Find it, and that night turns gold on the menu screen to keep track of your progress. Once you find them all, you unlock the secret second ending. This one might give the closure that I was missing, but I'll leave that one for you to find. The standard ending was satisfactory enough to not inspire me to deal with this again. Seven Nights Ghost is simplistic and slight when compared to some of its peers, but it's also quite a bit more wholesome than its user tags and forum posts suggested. Even if its spectral star is oddly glamorous, I enjoyed the platonic evening I spent getting to know her. Thanks for watching, folks. I've been nervous, I'll continue to be nervous, and I'll be back with something a little bit more in-depth next time. In the meantime, come watch me on Twitch. We have a really great community over there, and you can see me being very good at playing video games.